So when you hear something along the lines of like someone saying that the Quran justifies terrorism or that all Muslims are terrorists and stuff, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel a bit upset, and then it also makes me feel sad for the fact that there's so much ignorance out there.
What you want? What you want?
Well, what I think is every faith has controversial elements within their with their holy books. Obviously, it's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of interpretation. Everyone, someone might read it a different way. Someone might see it a different way. So it's a matter of interpretation, and it's important to realize that because it's in the eyes of the beholder. Kind of like the whole concept of terrorism is essentially based on perspective. The whole freedom fighter versus terrorist mentality. So I just think there's two ways to look at it.
I just came to Islam recently. I'm a recent convert, and if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I knew next to nothing about Islam, next to nothing about the Quran. And I mean, I don't think I would have said that, yeah, sure, it's horribly extremist, but I was sort of indifferent to those opinions and wouldn't have contradicted them, wouldn't have known enough to. Having sort of started to be a part of the community and getting to know Muslims and getting to know about the Quran, I was shocked at how much that's not true, like, at all. Muslims are just such, the ones that I've met, the Edmonton community, they're just such helpful, gentle people, which I realize is like a broad generalization to be making, but it's just so contrary to what we usually hear about Muslims. If you actually meet Muslims, they're like you and me. They're lovely people, just really eager to help out, teach about the Quran, and put to rest some of those misperceptions.
Recently I was reading an article I think it was in an independent newspaper, and it was a statement in regards to what Ian McEwen or something like that one, I don't know who he was, but he was talking about Islam and how it's barbaric and has such harsh rules and stuff like that, and just seeing what he was saying definitely proved that people in the mainstream society are very ignorant to what Islam is all about. Even when you get big name people saying statements of ignorance, that unfortunately further promulgates the issues of ignorance even further, because they have the wide reach where normal people don't.
Well, I think Islam is being singled out unfairly. I think it has to do a lot with American foreign policy as well. To kind of, in my opinion, they always kind of be an enemy to define themselves. If it's not Islamic terrorists, it's kind of Russian commies or Latino fanatics or fascist Japanese. So there's always something that they use. But I think for the people who criticize and castigate the religion as a whole, I think it's important for them to look at the faith, look at the big picture, rather than selectively look at passages from the Quran to justify their personal stereotypes. Because there's a lot of good in the Quran that can be seen to see the entire entire picture, rather than selectively choose to justify certain stereotypes. So.
Well, I mean, I think that my perception of Islam before I came to this was probably sort of along the lines that, just more generally, that it was a really traditional, orthodox, really strict religion. And I don't want to say that it's not, because certainly I've met Muslims who live by very strict rules, and I've certainly met lots of like really almost dogmatic Muslims. But what I found really interesting when I started doing research on my own, when I started talking to Muslims, when I started reading the Quran myself, was to learn that certainly you can interpret it that way, and certainly it has been interpreted that way, but the Quran itself is just a beautiful book. It's a beautiful, loving message, and yes, there are rules in there, but they're not rules that are, it's not primarily a prescriptive text. It's not about telling us what we can't do, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. It's about trying to give us a picture of how we can live as better people.
What you want? What you want? Come on.
I'd request them to go to the sources, because there are many organizations out there advocating Muslim rights, Muslim opinions, about information about our religion. So I would ask them to be open-minded and actually listen to our side of the view.
Quran is a magnificent book on its own. The verses that I would definitely make them focus on or read is one that almost every Muslim that's coming on TV or coming on the news always presents, so the mainstream society can realize what Islam is about. And it's always quoted, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says himself that if you save a life, it's like you've saved all of humanity. And if you kill a life, it's like you've killed all of humanity. So that alone shows the importance that Islam itself, by its essence, gives to human life. And this is not just limited to a Muslim.